it's supposed to look like this. It can also look like this, or if you're pressed, it can even look like this, and people who are looking for it will still point at their screens and go, "Whoa, that's the Akira slide." 40 years later, and that's probably the thing that people remember the most from 1988's Akira. And if you recognize the slide, you might just recognize the bike. Kaneda's bike, for anyone who's listening without watching, is just plain cool. It's a striking red in an overwhelmingly cool tone setting. It's clearly high-tech, customized to Kaneda's precise preferences, both in terms of handling and sticker placement. In some ways, maybe the important ones, the bike isn't one of Kaneda's accessories. The bike is Kaneda. The bike has crazy acceleration, but strong handling, and it's clearly designed to protect as much as it's designed as a bullet. You can also tell that the bike is Kaneda because they're the same color. This red only shows up in a couple of other places in the film. We'll get there, but before we do, let's talk Cyberpunk 2077. Cyberpunk 2077 is a game developed by CD Projekt Red in 2020, which was announced in 2013. That's so long ago that the first teaser for this next-gen PC-ruining game is in 720p. It would be very easy here to dog on the game about the bugs it was infested with on release, but I'm not going to do that. There's been almost as much time between 2077's release and now as there was between the announcement and the release. 12 years in total, and any bugs that the game might have launched with have been squashed. I said it at the time, when I was driving through Night City on a rig that could barely run at that teaser trailer 720p, that version of the game is not the important one. The glitches would never define V's journey, not in the long run. And I don't even remember my first playthrough as in 720 anyway. I remember the world going to shit, and I remember finishing the semester's classes and not being sure what to do with myself over winter break. I remember meeting Jackie Wells and getting a clap on the back and a fresh start. I remember nowhere to go but up. Jackie's aiming for the top, obviously. To aim for anywhere else in Night City is to admit to the city that you can't handle what it's got. And V? Well, I'm not sure she is quite as ambitious as her friend, but she's made of some stern fucking stuff. So when an opportunity hooks onto Jackie's line, you'd better believe he reels that sucker in. There's not a fishing minigame in here. You know how that goes. Jackie introduces V to Dexter Deshawn, Dex introduces V to Evelyn, Ev introduces V to Judy Alvarez. And eventually, Jackie introduces V to a 70-something rocker boy named Johnny Silverhand. The rest of the game sort of sprawls out from there. I'm not going to summarize the 40 to 140 hours of 2077's story, because if you're watching this, I bet you've played some of it already. Instead, I want to talk a little bit about how the game is structured to emphasize that Night City couldn't give a shit about you. But the people who V meets will. V's story is about survival. No parents, no family, stranded in a city littered with ventures started and then cast aside or dropped from freshly cold hands. Life in Night City is dangerous enough, between the gangs, the Night City Police Department, and the cyberpsychosis epidemic. All of those are things that could kill someone. But V is special because she will die in a few weeks, unless she does something about her cyberparasite. I should revise. When I said that Jackie introduces V to Johnny Silverhand, that was technically correct, but misleading. Jackie didn't know he was doing that. This is the rocker boy turned guardian angel. The USB stick, called a shard, that Johnny lives on is the only thing keeping V alive right now. It's also in the process of rewriting her body and brain to make more space for Johnny's soul. On the off chance that you don't know or don't remember, Johnny isn't doing any of this of his own accord. The stick is also keeping Johnny alive, and he doesn't have any control over it. He's sort of trapped in an amoeba. The shard consumes because that's all it knows. Fortunately, Jackie took a shine to V a while ago and invited her into his life. Jackie looked out for V, brought her into the fold, and so V has some connections to lean on. That's what every major quest in 2077 is based on. V knows someone who might be willing to help. The three major people that V knows who could help are Evelyn Parker, Johnny Silverhand, and Goro Takamura. You've got three pathways to survival, and each branches out. Secretly, the real thing that saves V isn't some resource that any one of these parties have, but the culmination of a community's efforts. Seeking help from Evelyn leads V to make contact with a powerful AI. Seeking help from Johnny gives V the means and ability to push for what she needs. Seeking help from Takamura gives V a realistic direction to move in. Without any of these pieces, V will fade away. The story is, if you take a step outside of V, refreshingly small. If she fails, she won't even be another scoop of gonk paste for the NCPD to scrape off the street. But it doesn't feel small, because V fights tooth and nail for every second, and the people in her life are made better for it. I think the people in my life make it better too. I mean, that sort of connection in a setting where a stray bullet could hit you while you hail a cab is pretty common in the cyberpunk genre. The genre named after Mike Pondsmith's tabletop game of the dark future. 2077 is littered with Easter eggs and little references to other pieces of that genre. The game devs really did their homework. You can hardly take a shortcut through an alley without a surprise boss fight against the Major. These connections to major works like Blade Runner or Ghost in the Shell serve to cue players into the major themes and overall strengthen the narrative. Akira is a film. It's also a manga, both written and directed by Katsuhiro Otomo. I was introduced to it by someone on the net, maybe Noah Caldwell-Gervais, pointing to 2077's Kusanagi and saying, "Whoa, that's the Akira bike!" So that's where our focus is for right now. I mentioned before that Kaneda's bike is Kaneda. The accessory is part of the protagonist. When Kaneda is at school or under arrest or sneaking around, he's less like himself. His jacket and motorcycle stripped away, he's still clever and brave, but he's not quite the same. Without the bike, he's not particularly strong or powerful, he's just a kid with strong ideas. With his bike, Kaneda could take on a nuclear bomb. Tetsuo wishes he was Kaneda so bad. You may or may not know that Tetsuo is one of the many characters in Akira who you see and think, "Oh, that must be Akira." And then another character calls them by their name and you discover that they are not, in fact, Akira. The first, of course, is Kaneda, our protagonist. To call Tetsuo an antagonist might be technically correct in that he provides obstacles for Kaneda, but that would be kinda like calling Johnny Silverhand the antagonist of Cyberpunk. The story hinges on the relationship between these two characters. Tetsuo gets beat up, Kaneda gets him out of the situation, and their friends beat up the guy who was beating Tetsuo up. This has been repeating since the moment that these two met. Kaneda and Tetsuo are found brothers. The first thing we see Tetsuo do in the story is fiddle with Kaneda's bike when he isn't looking. This exact maneuver is how I got my hands on my first GPU. And Kaneda doesn't even really scold Tetsuo when he finds him, instead telling him to steal his own and teasing him for not being a good enough biker to ride it anyway. Tetsuo has his own bike, but it's not nearly as cool as Kaneda's. It's a pale blue, it goes slower, Tetsuo doesn't handle on it as well. The worst part is that Kaneda is right about Tetsuo not being able to handle the red bike. Pisses the little bro right off. Once they take off, the viewer might notice that one of the ways that Kaneda has customized his bike is with all these cool stickers and tags. Tetsuo's bike also has a couple of stickers on it. and they're Kanada's bright red, contrasting against Tetsuo's pale blue, almost like wounds in his pride. And those wounds don't get any smaller. Kanada succeeds in as many slides as Tetsuo eats shit on. Tetsuo eating shit on the last one is actually the inciting incident of the movie. If Tetsuo was Kanada, none of this would have happened. After the opening sequence, some more fantastical stuff happens, but it's not really important to us since it doesn't involve motorcycles. I'm trying to stay focused here. What was I saying? Oh, yeah, right. So Tetsuo escapes from the hospital where he's being treated for / trained to use his too much brain twice. The first time, he finds his girl, and they chat about how scary the hospital is, and Tetsuo resolves that he needs Kanada's bike. After some circumstances, Tetsuo is back in the hospital. Don't worry, he gets out again, and this time, he's grown, and he doesn't fucking need Kanada's help. So he doesn't ask after Kanada's bike. I don't think he mentions it again for the rest of the film, despite having been so fixated on it towards the start. But here's that one other place that the Kanada Red shows up. Enforcing Kanada's absence, Tetsuo calls his presence. Tetsuo steals a bloody, gruesome tapestry, turns it into a cape, marks his ascent as the most powerful thing in this world, its ruler. Or, to look at it another way, he wraps himself in an older brother-colored blankie. It's up to interpretation, really. Almost done here, but there are two other major things in Akira that I want to touch on before we get back to how it's important for 2077. One is the moment watching the film where it clicked for me that motorcycles in this story aren't just accessories, but metaphorically are their riders. The second is the final confrontation between Kanada and Tetsuo. Stick with me? Cool. A little before Tetsuo's ascent, he kills Yamagata, one of the recurring members of Kanada's gang. It happens off-screen, but it messes Kai up pretty good. When Kanada hears about this, he and Kai salvage Yamagata's bike. Kanada doesn't have his own wheels at the moment, since he's been off doing other stuff. No motorcycles were involved, so I won't be explaining.
And even before that, plankton and amoebas?
But it'd be good to keep Yamagata's wheels on hand, keep the group mobile, sort of thing. Kanada does something else. Yamagata's dead, so his bike should be too. Which is dumb as shit, tactically speaking, but that isn't the most important thing here. Tetsuo hasn't been himself since his bike was totaled. With that in mind, Kanada arms himself with a kick-ass laser cannon, mounts his bike, and gets ready to confront Tetsuo. Remember when I mentioned our loser boy had killed that one guy? He's killed a lot of guys. By the time Kanada gets to him, he's pretty much thrown his temper tantrum. He's tired, his head hurts, and he wants to be done. But he's too good at brain for his own good, and his body starts expanding, devouring. Kinda like an amoeba might, if it were given the abilities of a human. It's gross. And sad, too, because Tetsuo is so scared.
Kaneda, help me! Stop this, Tetsuo!
And Kaneda helps him, of course, despite his best interest and despite their personal beef. They're brothers.
Tetsuo! Kaneda! Hang on!
There are our themes, pretty much. We got found family, jealousy, a world that doesn't care for you, the people in it who will, a corrupt police state, a dog shit, beautiful city, and some sweet, angry people who wouldn't dream of leaving it. When I was doing the initial research for this, I knew that I wanted to rewatch Akira, but I also wanted to make sure that if the Kusanagi is pulling from any other stories, that I didn't leave them out of the discussion. The first place I went in hopes both of learning about any potential references and also learning more about the bike's in-game incarnation, was the Cyberpunk 2077 wiki. I found some neat stuff there, including that there's a black Kusanagi in-game, which is rad in a kind of Shadow the Hedgehog way, as well as that the means of acquiring the Kusanagi have changed as the game has been updated. The most striking thing to me, though, was a name under the trivia category. What the hell is Bubblegum Crisis?
I know you wanted me to stay, but I can't ignore the crazy visions of me in LA. And I heard that there's a special place where boys and girls can all be queens every single day. I'm having wicked dreams of leaving Tennessee. That Santa Monica, I swear it's calling me. Won't make my mama cry, it's gonna cause a scene. She sees a baby girl, and now she's gonna scream, God, what have you done? You're a pink pony girl, and you're dancing in the club now, mama. I'm just having fun on the stage in my heels. It's where I belong, down at the pink pony.
What was I saying? Anime opens on Tokyo exploding. We're introduced to the protagonist wearing red biker gear, matches their iconic bike. The bike is important because they're part of a biker gang. Has a fraught relationship with New Tokyo's government. I think we can skip ahead. This feels familiar. Final confrontation, hinted at enemy, our protagonist, who's finally been reunited with her bike, seems like himself again. Blaster that's too big to one hand, and a space laser. What I'm saying is there are some parallels. This is copyright infringement. Wait, no, that's stupid. Easter eggs aren't copyright infringement. I mean, sure, they can be, but to make a blanket statement like that requires that you be wrong. A story can cheaply rip parts out of another one, but I don't think that's what's happening here. Bubblegum Crisis started airing in 1987, a year before the Akira film, and only 3 years after the manga started. I think that a more interesting take here is that Bubblegum Crisis was maybe a little inspired by Akira, and maybe exploring some of the same ideas. There's the surface level crossover that I went over quickly, but deeper than that, both stories are grappling with young adulthood, survivor's guilt, building a life from the ruins of those who came before. Borrowing some contemporary ideas and remixing them into a new story is a powerful, efficient way to inform the audience of what the story is going to be like. It's also an opportunity to explore new ideas using the framework of an existing setting. My very quick summary of Bubblegum Crisis, following so quickly after my more granular treatment of Akira, which is already a household name by the way, sort of exaggerates the overlap. Many of the same components are there, but the team behind Bubblegum Crisis is clearly more interested in some aspects of Neo Tokyo that went under or even completely unexplored in Akira. The amoeba that Pris fights isn't a guy with psychokinetic powers beyond his own comprehension. It's this robot, one of a series called the Boomers, which disguise themselves as human and then use that stealth to wreak havoc. It might mean nothing that the antagonists of this world are some next generation tech named after the generation of people who would be hitting maturity at the same time of the series release. It probably doesn't, though. Our protagonist is Priscilla Asagiri. She's notable for being in a band and not being the leader of her biker gang. She looks a lot like Kaneda, and she's resilient like he is, but she has a heavier emphasis on her raw strength. She cares about her crew, but she doesn't have, like, a soulmate in the way that Kaneda and Tetsuo have one another. While I'm playing Spot the Difference, the only hint we get of sexuality in Akira is violent and uncomfortable. Bubblegum Crisis has fun with it. The girls invite attention, are clear when they don't want it, and one of them works in a lingerie shop, so you can just imagine how cute they might look in different sets. The show uses some imagery that its audience might recognize to quickly establish a setting, and then it deviates from Akira in ways that allow it to tell its own story. Bubblegum Crisis is also the only story that has ever pulled anything from Akira, is why I'm bringing it up. Okay, so that last bit obviously isn't true. I'm talking about Bubblegum Crisis because someone who contributes to the Cyberpunk 2077 wiki thought it was relevant, and I've been convinced that it is. On the surface, I thought the idea that 2077's Akira bike might actually be from some other smaller series that I'd never heard of was a little ridiculous, and I had to know why someone would bring it up. But now that I've watched an episode, I think I get it. Pris's bike has an angularity to it that isn't present on Kaneda's motorcycle, but is well defined on the Kusanagi. Then again, the way the wheels are connected to the body and the stickers all over the front are extremely reminiscent of Kaneda's bike, and not present on Pris's. I think if I was trying to give a little attention to all of the major hits of the cyberpunk genre, Akira would be higher on my list than Bubblegum Crisis, but there's really no reason that the Kusanagi couldn't be a composite of these two motorcycles. Or maybe even more that I don't know about. It's not like Pris or Kaneda named their bikes the Kusanagi anyway, so there's definitely something I'm missing here. Or maybe something I haven't gotten to yet. Kusanagi no Tsurugi is the name of an important sword in Japanese folklore, one of the three major symbols of the emperor, handed down from the gods and passed down through generations. In some ways, the sword, the mirror, Yata no Kagami, and the jewel, Yasakami no Magatama, are synonymous with Japanese sovereignty. Anything bearing any of these names must be of great importance to the story, or at least its setting. The protagonist of Ghost in the Shell is the Major, and until recently I only knew her by her title. I did a video on her movie last year and I didn't mention her full name once. She's Major Makoto Kusanagi. She is the sword. Having the Major and people like her gives Sector 9, the agency that she works for, its authority. 2013 saw the release of Ghost in the Shell Arise, a continuation of the Ghost in the Shell franchise. I haven't seen it, and I don't intend to watch it for this video. I learned about it from the same place I learned about Bubblegum Crisis, and there's not one still I've seen of this show that makes me think it would be a better watch than anything else in my backlog. In Arise, the Major rides this motorcycle. Just like when I was looking at Pris's bike, I'm struck with this feeling. That's it! That's the Kusanagi! And that's, I think, why the Kusanagi is in Cyberpunk 2077 in the way that it is. They put the Akira bike in the game so that you'd point at the screen and go, "Whoa! That's the Akira bike!" Or maybe, "Whoa! That's the Bubblegum Crisis bike!" Or even, "Whoa! Another Ghost in the Shell reference? That's a deep cut." And while that's cool, I find it a little disappointing. I'm sick of Neo Tokyos. Let's go back to Night City. Cyberpunk 2077 is a game.
Good morning, Night City!
Anybody stop this feeling? Anybody stop this pain?
One officer down, so I guess you're all screwed!
From turning.
Not let that go.
Tell me that I'm just dreaming. Don't tell me we've gone too far.
While over in Westbrook, trauma teams scraping cyberpsycho victims off the pavement!
Is it written in all our scars? Never gonna turn it back. Never gonna change the fact.
This has been your man, Stan! Join me for another day in our City of Dreams!
Jackie Wells is a hell of a protagonist. V is the player character and sees a lot more of the game than Jackie does, but things happen to V. Jackie makes things happen. Whatever your life path, Jackie gets V sincerely into Mercwork. He makes the connections to Misty, to Victor, to T-Bug, and eventually to goddamn Dexter Deshawn, the hottest fixer in the hottest city anywhere you can spend a Eurodollar.
What do we say we're there for?
Jackie leads the crew. His biker gear isn't as striking red as Kanada's, but red is the defining color. The thing that catches your eye under all of that black leather. He has a girlfriend, Misty, but that doesn't stop Kaneda or Tetsuo from being one another's soulmates, and I don't think it stops Jackie and V from having that sort of connection either. Whether they're fast friends or old pals, their connection runs so deep that when V has the opportunity to meet any ghost, Jackie Wells is the one that appears to her. Plus, I haven't introduced you yet to his preem red bike. What if Kaneda couldn't bring his bike to the most important part of his life? What if he had to leave it at home just for a little bit, and he promised that bike that when he got back, everything would be better? Well, I'd hope that if he couldn't make it back, that he'd leave his wheels for Tetsuo. Little brother loved that bike almost as much as he loved Kaneda, and I don't think that there's a V out there who doesn't love Jackie's arch. Jackie's arch. Wait, that can't be right. What the hell is an arch? Arch is Keanu Reeves' motorcycle company. If you don't know who that is, he looks and sounds remarkably like Johnny Silverhand. I think CD Projekt Red noticed the similarities and decided to partner with Arch for the game. Not only is Jackie's bike specifically an arch, but many of the motorcycle sounds for 2077 were recorded with Arch motorcycles on a track. They're fucking cool bikes! Okay, so Jackie's bike, the bike that V inherits from her best friend after he eats shit sliding down a building, is not the Kusanagi. Well, maybe V steals the Akira bike, like how Kaneda steals his ride before that story starts? That's how you get the Hoon and the Caliburn? Or maybe it's a quest reward, like the Mackinac. Here, let me scrub back through my footage, and we'll see if we can get this sorted. You buy it for 66,000 euro dollars. Online. Like it's a goddamn microphone stand. Like it's some weird snacks that you can't find at the gas station. Like it's a body pillow that you don't want your roommates to know about. And that's fine, I guess. But it also isn't really anything, you know? I don't even know what else to say about it. Maybe it used to be better. El Capitan, don't think I don't appreciate the convenience of your online store, but there's something I like about buying local, personal, stepping into a cobbler's shop and there's just nowhere to step because there's shoes everywhere. Once upon a time, after enough questing, Wakako would text V and invite her to purchase a discount Kusanagi. Here, I'm getting mine for 58,000 creds, though if you bought yours even earlier, I hear you could have spent as few as 22,000. So this is a little better, I guess. It comes from someone involved in a gang, at least. You could imagine a Kaneda connection there, but you'd be imagining it. The Akira bike is like a big deal in science fiction. It's a big deal in cyberpunk, the genre that bears this franchise's name, and the genre that this game gets its name from. It carries a lot of weight, a lot of emotion to those who know it well, and it's disappointing to see it featured without any of that weight, especially when it could have been used as leverage to strengthen the story that the game is already trying to tell. I'm sick of Night City. Let's go to New Domino. I want to tell you about my favorite toy commercial. Exploded city with a nice part and a demolished part, incomprehensible power source, friend-oriented gang leader protagonist with a red handmade motorcycle, his pale-coated faded rival, our found brother, and these pieces are used to tell a story that explores government corruption, wealth disparity, a generation of young people trying to make a life out of the ruins of the people that came before them. It could just be me, but I'm thinking all of this sounds a little familiar. Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds is an anime, and then also a manga, but most of all it's a toy commercial. You can buy Yusei and Jack's Ace Monsters online right now. Heck, you can buy Yusei and Jack right now. This isn't groundbreaking, and neither was Bubblegum Crisis, or the latest version of Ghost in the Shell. I'm bringing it up because it has a lot of respect for its source material. When the Yu-Gi-Oh! Franchise wanted to be taken seriously again, it turned to one of the most impactful stories in its medium, and gave it an ancient, mystical twist. 5Ds reimagines Kaneda as a stoic duelist who nonetheless is driven almost completely by his love for his friends. It reimagines Tetsuo as a little more controlled, a little more sinister, but doesn't forget that at his heart, he loves deeply. It also reimagines Tetsuo as a chick without shying away from his destructive isolation. Obviously, Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds also does plenty of stuff that is not in Akira. Signers, dragons, card games? We don't need to get into all of it here. The point I'm trying to make is that even this toy commercial, even that Hays Code approved hentai, has a respect and a love for Akira. They didn't just cheaply lift something recognizable, they wanted to remix and explore and see what it would be like to make something like that. Jackie's death hit me pretty hard. It was the plague year, and I was the only one of my roommates staying in our apartment over Christmas. I spent a lot of time driving to nowhere in particular that year. Sometimes I'd pass someone else on a drive, maybe also trying to get out of the house a little bit. More often I wouldn't. So when Jackie died, and I did a lap around Night City to feel that crisp, cool desert night air, clear my head a little. Then something unexpected and heartwarming happened. Every fixer called me. Wakako, Dino, Hans, El Capitan, Padre. Every single one of them called me to offer work. My failure, my loss, could not have been a more public affair. If the city wasn't breathing down my neck before, it definitely was looking for me now. It felt like Jackie had left me one last thing. Instead of turning against me, the people in the city hugged me tighter, seemed to say, "We see you. We know you're hurt. And we're giving you what we can. Never stop fighting." That moment isn't actually in the game. I made it up. Kind of. I don't think that there's anything in the game that indicates that the fixers reach out to you because they already know Jackie. None of them mention that they do. I just imagine that Jackie would have made those connections and maybe introduced V in the same way that he did with Dexter Deshawn. They don't call you after Jackie dies. They call you when you enter their area for the first time, so that you, the player, know about them and have an in-universe reason to do all these side quests. Do all these side quests while you have only a few weeks to live. And that's fine, right? But it's a missed opportunity. It's the Kusanagi again. CD Projekt Red has clearly done their homework for this game, because they've made an incredible amount of references to other pieces of the genre that the game is named for. It's just a shame that so many of those references are only skin deep. Thanks for watching.